Everybody else fed? Watered?
I swear to God,
Yep.
the cat's a f***ing magician.
Eh?
I swear to God, the cat's a f***ing magician. He just has his capacity to completely disappear as soon as you turn your back, and then reappear like the shopkeeper of Mr. Ben when you least expect it. I'm sure that little f***ing teleport. It's just it was behind me a second ago, and now it's just totally disappeared. I can't see
It's a
anymore.
glitch in the Matrix.
Yeah.
You are admitting in public that you're being outwitted by an animal with a brain the size of a walnut.
Yes.
Like the fully grown one.
Hello and welcome to the AVForums podcast for Wednesday the 25th of March 2015, and joining me on this edition are Assistant Editor Steve Withers,
Has lasagna, don't get any onion.
News Editor Mark Hodgkinson,
Who are you and what are you doing here?
Games Editor Mark Botwright,
Wait a minute.
and Audio Reviewer Ed Selley.
Such a nice ass.
Ed, are you in the bathroom again this week?
No, I'm in my lounge.
Have you seen the complaints about the audio quality at your end?
Look, okay, I obviously apparently live in an extremely echoey house. I'm not 100% sure what I should do about that.
Well, seeing as you're an audio reviewer, and you
If
should
you
know
don't
how
know how to
sound
computer
waves
treat-
work within a room.
We've got EQ for that. I can't EQ this microphone, though. That's the thing.
I'd love it if when people met you in real life, you did just have an echoey voice.
Right, so did we all see the eclipse?
Yes.
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 I didn't.
No,
Well, yeah, but you
forgot
live,
about it.
you live near the wall, don't you? For further sort of tie-in, I was listening to Eclipse whilst I watched it, and we had a nice break in the clouds. And I remembered just in the nick of time that my camera's got a mode for actually viewing incredibly bright
Eclipse
things.
mode.
Well, it's not called that, but it works. Basically, you can point it at it, tell it that the thing is incredibly bright. It kind of figures it out for itself, and then you can just watch it on the view screen, which was quite cool. Unfortunately, what I hadn't done was remember to put an SD card back in the camera, so I didn't actually take any photos.
That's all right. I watched it through the viewfinder as well. It worked perfect.
Yeah.
I was fairly sure other people were going to take pictures and it might be on the news. So, you know,
Yeah,
I was right in that.
You were right. Well done.
I kind of thought Twitter would just be photo after photo after photo, and again, I was right.
And Bonnie Tyler quote.
Yeah, Bonnie Tyler, and the other thing was loads of people trying to be funny, uploading photographs of a cloudy sky, saying, "Look at the eclipse." It was hilarious the first time. After 67 variants, although Mark, I thought yours was lovely with the 3 stars. The three
Yeah.
lens flares. That was
That's
very
professional
JJ Abrams.
photographer like me, you know.
Yeah.
That's
Very
what you
JJ. Very JJ. Yeah.
Okay.
God. Right. Okay. I'm depressed. The reason I'm depressed is I'm packing up a bit of review kit that's going to go back, and it's such a
finally come back to you.
it's such a superb bit of review kit that it's.
It happens to us all. I'm having to do some parting with equipment tomorrow as well. So, you know, the whole idea is that you just review more. You know, sometimes it's not as good, but you know, the whole thing is you just keep moving on in search of the better mousetrap.
Well, you see, although I am packing them away, I'm only packing them away because I've got new speakers arriving tomorrow.
Right.
And when it's a good bit of kit, and the guys will back me up on this, it's like them taking your firstborn, I imagine.
Well, I can assure you, as in possession of someone of a firstborn, it kind of isn't. But nonetheless,
It's much worse than that.
yes, depending on what time the courier turned up, it's like, no, you go right on ahead. You take the dribbling little bastard, and be done with it. No, it is annoying, but don't get me wrong. I say my pack is going away tomorrow, but there are more exciting things in the pipeline. So onwards and upwards.
But Ed, if it's the best subwoofer you've ever heard, you're never going to hear anything.
Everything else is going to be tremendously depressing until such time as I root around the sofa enough to find £3,000. I know that. I'm in a good place with it. It gives me something to shoot for.
Right, okay, so to cheer me and everybody else up, Mark, Botwright, what can we win?
We've got the Thermaltake Core X9 PC case. That's courtesy of Scan. That runs through to the 31st of March. There's also the Blu-ray of The Necessary Death of Charlie Countryman. 3 copies of that, and that will end on 13th of April. A couple of pairs of Soundmagic P30S headphones. That will run through to the 20th of April. And finally, a Dali Cubic 1 stereo system. And that will end at the end of April 30th next month.
Excellent. So those are the competitions. Go and enter them. You never know. You may win. Let's move on to hardware. And Mark, you've been looking at some media players which come all the way from Hong Kong, a company called Minix. So what are they and why the hell should we care?
Right. Well, if you think of an Apple TV or a Roku or the Fire TV box, it's similar to that, but it's running a fully fledged version of Android. So it's all actually more like a sort of a high-spec tablet that you plug into your TV, and you have the full gamut of Android apps available to use on it. So, you know, the limitations are just there aren't really many limitations. Perhaps the control interface is the one that will put people off. With it being a largely touchscreen interface, then you've got to use like an air mouse, like these smart TV controllers that LG and Samsung produce, like a pointer on the screen to get yourself about. But yeah, you can use, as I say, just name the app and you can download and use it. So all the streaming services, whether video or music, all run pretty good on it. You can do browsing, Skyping, play some games, pair a controller with it. I mean, literally, they do anything really that you could possibly think of.
Okay, BBC iPlayer HD.
Yeah, no, that there we go. The limitations are some of the apps don't support HD. So iPlayer natively doesn't, Netflix doesn't, the Amazon Instant app doesn't work properly on Android, on all Android devices. So there is that limitation, but then there are workarounds if you install XBMC. In fact, it comes with a specifically tailored version pre-installed, so you can get Amazon Instant in 1080p and the full 720p from BBC iPlayer. So it just basically leaves Netflix as the key players sort of lacking the full HD resolution. But if you haven't got a device that already does Netflix, then you're probably not living in the 21st century.
But other streaming services are available.
What? Oh, well. Now, I mean, Steve used and I both use Now TV, Sky's Sky streaming service. You can stick that on it. I've been using it as my second Virgin box as well. So the TiVo Virgin Anywhere TV Anywhere app runs perfectly well on it. So I've got like a second TiVo in the kitchen. BBC iPlayer app, radio app. Sorry, I use that quite extensively. Podcast catcher, yeah, all the stuff I do on my tablet that can be usefully sort of accomplished on the TV. I've been using it just like that. It's fantastic for Tidal and streaming sort of music around the house as well. So yeah, just great. Cool. It runs games. It can run games emulators on it. I mean, anything you can do Android, that'd be of interest to Mr. Botwright. I've got something called RetroArch running on it over the weekend, which gives emulation all the way back to the consoles of old. Using an Amazon Fire TV controller, and it all works smashing. For
somebody like you that's tech aware, hopefully.
Yeah.
not like Withers who gets baffled by a cat, but if your granny was to pick it up, Mark.
Nah, it's not a granny's device. It's not one. If I was buying one for my mum, for instance, it would still be Roku because everything just is easy and works out of the box, and you don't have to tinker about. And you know, it is slightly techie still. I think with the release of Android 5.0, which is what it's going to be running on these Sony TVs and the Philips TVs, it becomes that bit more lean back orientated. So your remote control, like a standard remote control with the directional and OK keys, should be able to navigate you about perfectly adequately. So things will only get better in that respect. As the gaming as well, more and more games are coming with controller support. So yeah, we're going to see from the TV manufacturers the assault of Android smart TVs this year, like a proper one, and the boxes will just follow suit
when they eventually get them out.
Well, I know, having spoken to, I mean, this is going back to something Steve was talking about the other week, the delay in the Philips Android TVs. It's no doubt down to the fact that Android 5.0 is a buggy piece of shit right now, and that's, you know, that's why the box manufacturers aren't sort of jumping aboard. Bar Google themselves, basically, with their Nexus player that's due out very soon.
And is that the technical term?
Yes, it's a direct quote from the manufacturer.
Okay, so it's not your mum or granny friendly.
It's not your mum, but anyone, you know, most people listening to this podcast, you would think would be able to use it quite comfortably.
How little you know me.
I didn't mean
I've
you.
never managed to get that used foreign Netflix thing. I mean, I was completely baffled by that. No, it had nothing to. I have every confidence that it's entirely down to my own limited and pointless skill sets.
Change the DNS settings is pretty tricky, isn't it?
It just didn't want to know.
I can just imagine you on the phone there, Ed, with your set skills. They're limited.
I have a very limited set of skills. I might find you.
I won't find you, but if you have a turntable.
That was a joking Family Guy, wasn't it, Hill?
Yeah, I have no sets of skills. I have nothing in my favour.
Never find you.
I'll never find you. Okay, so let's move on. And Steve was at the Philips launch last week. We discussed all the TVs, Steve, but one of the things we didn't discuss, and it was one of the things that Philips definitely brought to market, and it can be a good thing, but in their implementation it's usually bad, and that's Ambilight.
Yeah, I mean, the concept behind Ambilight is pretty straightforward. They fit LEDs in the backs of the TV. And then you've got an option. You can either have the LEDs mimic the image on the screen, so the colours on the screen would mimic by the Ambilights behind, or the LEDs behind the panel itself, or you can use what's called the ISF mode, which basically is a D65 white light behind the screen. Now, the kind of the disco-y multicoloured effects, I think, are basically a gimmick, although Philips are pushing it very heavily. I mean, at the show last week, they were showing a new version where it can be used with gaming. So it's got a very fast response time. So when you're gaming, you can also have the lights changing behind the screen. And also a version you can use when you listen to music, which either has lights going up and down like a volume control light, or obviously it can flash in time with the music, that kind of stuff. Now, again, that's very disco-y. But the ISF mode, I think, is really, really useful because you might think that you go to the cinema and it's very dark in a cinema and you're looking at the screen, and that's great. So why wouldn't you want to do that in your lounge at night? But of course, a projection screen is a lot dimmer than a television. And if you go to the cinema, I mean, any cinema would basically be kind of calibrated to industry standards of about 14 to 16 foot Lambert's fill, right? On a 2D movie.
Yeah.
That's not very bright. Your average telly will be putting out, unless you set it up correctly and choose the movie mode and then lower the brightness a bit so that when you're watching it evening, it's not too bright. But if you're just pulling it out of the box, your TV could be putting out anywhere between 50 and 60 foot Lamberts easy. And that's really bright, particularly if you're in a dark room. So two things you want to do here, really. One is you want to make sure you got your TV set up correctly for nighttime viewing. You don't want it too bright because it is going to be very fatiguing for the eye to be looking at a very bright image.
Now, when we say that, people think, oh no, my eyes don't get tired. No, we're not talking about your eyes getting tired. We're talking about you getting tired.
Yeah. Sometimes you might find, and I've had this before in the past, where you go to bed in the evening and think, I feel really tired. I haven't done anything all evening. I'm just in front of the TV. You are fatigued. If you think about it this way, if I got a torch and flashed it in your eye for about 2 hours, you get pretty pissed off at the end of it because your pupils are dilating and contracting all the time as things get light and dark. It's working hard and it does become tiring for the body. So you don't want your TV too bright. So ideally you want to set it. So basically what you ideally want, and if you get someone to come and calibrate your TV, this is what they'll do. They'll create two separate modes. One for watching TV during the day, when obviously there's a lot of ambient light in the room and you do want a brighter picture, and one for watching TV at night when there's no ambient light in the room or very little, and you don't want it too bright because then it's a more comfortable viewing experience. The other thing that you can do is you can add what's called bias lighting, which is effectively what Philips Ambilight is doing. It's adding bias light, a nice neutral white behind the screen, so that you've got a bit of lighting in the room. So, because you don't need to be watching TV in a pitch black room. And I think generally most people would admit that they tend to have some form of light on in the room at night when they're watching TV, because no one sits in a pitch black lounge either. Might have a light on somewhere. But having it behind the screen means, you get the benefit of the additional light in the room, which means that you can find your cup of tea and your biscuit. But also, it means that it's basically an optical illusion, but it makes the blacks on the screen itself look better because they're being contrasted against the lighting around the screen itself. So that's why it's this particular feature on Philips, and you can obviously do it yourself. You can either buy some LED strips of LEDs, or you could put a lamp behind the TV. Ultimately, as long as you can get yourself a nice neutral white color, you can create a similar effect yourself. But basically what it means is you've got a comfortable viewing environment. Your TV's not too bright. You've got a bit of light in the room that you can see what you're doing, and it makes your blacks look better. So basically it's a win-win all around. And that's one of the reasons why I really like the ISF Ambilight mode on the Philips TVs. I think, it's built in there for you. Just turn it on and there you go. Yeah. In fact, when I've been reviewing those TVs, I've kind of missed it when the TVs have gone back.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm with you
there.
there.
The problem is, though, that I have no doubt at all. If you say the ISF mode is quite good, it is. But just the temptation with Ambilight has always been, whenever it's on demonstration in stores, is just to turn it to the campest mode possible.
Yeah, it's
and it just looks like a bag of spanners.
Yeah,
I think at no point is my life going to be enriched buy a television that glows like a baboon's arse. It's just pointless.
That is pointless, and it's one of these things where there is a genuinely good reason for having something like that on a TV, and then the marketing department gets involved, and suddenly it turns into a nightclub. And unfortunately, that's the way the market works. I mean, it's how they market the TVs to the public. When we were at IFA, there was a whole section where it was turning pink and purples and blues and yellows and all the rest of it behind the screen. Totally unnecessary. What we're talking
it's
about. It's
unnecessary, but is that having a detrimental effect to how you view the colours on the screen?
Yes, totally. It's like if you were to hang your TV on a wall that's coloured red, then that will affect how you see colour on the screen. Because you have red round about the screen, it will affect what you see on screen and how you perceive the colours on screen.
Which is why I specifically said a neutral white. Ideally, D65, which is the color of white for video, because you don't want it to it will affect the way you're perceiving the image. Absolutely. In the same way that you'll think the blacks look blacker, you'll also think the colors look different if you start putting different colors around the screen.
Yeah, so you want to be as neutral as possible. It's like this whole dress thing that was on the internet a couple of weeks ago. Is it white and gold? Actually, is it white and gold or is it black and blue? It's it's how your eyes work, how you perceive the colours, and it just takes a tiny little thing. I mean, the important thing here is that you're putting the bias lighting behind the screen, not in front of the screen, not to the sides of the screen, not where it will fall on the screen. And this is especially important if you're using a projection system in a light controlled room. You don't want any bias lighting whatsoever. You don't want any light in the room. And a good example we used to see on the training courses, the ISF training courses and so on, was sitting in a dark room, and all you needed was one match or a candle in front of the screen, and I'm talking like viewing distance from the screen, like 7 feet away from the screen, and it murders the contrast ratio. At the same time, you don't want that in the living room. You don't want any lights that are going to fall onto the screen, even if it's an LCD, and we always think that those are light cannons. At the same time, you don't want anything falling on the screen, because at the shortest end of the things, you're going to have reflections, depending on how reflective the screen is. But it can also, again, change the way that you're perceiving the image if you've got too much light. And the number one rule is, even with an LCD TV, do not put the TV opposite a window.
No, don't put it opposite a window. Don't put lights in where you can see them reflected in the screen. I know this is probably something that causes an awful lot of arguments in the average home when someone's trying to put a new TV in, especially as screens have got bigger and bigger and bigger over the years. And I bet, this is going to sound slightly sexist, but I've had this conversation with numerous girlfriends in the past, like, why have you put it right in the middle of the room and not in the corner? Because I don't want it in the corner. I want it in the middle of the room so I can put speakers either side and all the other features that come with watching a TV and sound system. There's going to be arguments about that, but ideally you want to position it where it's central to the room so that you can sit in the sweet spot. All the more important these days with curved TVs, and you want to avoid any light sources that can reflect off the screen, and obviously windows.
Yeah, you want to sit in the sweet spot. Bugger the other half. Not literally.
Later, anyway.
But anyway, getting back to the main point of this, bias lighting, it's worth doing. It's simple to add into your system, and it needn't cost a fortune either. I think I use it on my PC, and let me explain. I'm surrounded by screens here, but I put lights behind them all so I don't get fatigue. And those were £12, I think, and they're D65. I'm trying to remember where I got them from. Tesco's, maybe.
I mean, if you've got a little lamp, you can just pop the new bulb in, put it behind, try it out, see what you think. It's dead easy to do. You haven't got to start buying those expensive, actually not that expensive, but you haven't got to start getting fat carried away and, installing strip LEDs behind this sort of stuff, and just try it with a lamp. Just see what you think. You'll be surprised at the effect it'll have.
Actually, these bulbs that I bought, I don't have the box to hand, but it did actually say on the box that it was colour temperature. It actually had the colour temperature on it.
So definitely worth investigating if you haven't already done that.
So Mr. Botwright, you got any questions?
No. I've actually picked up one of these little strips since last time we spoke, but I've yet to install it. The only thing I would ask with regards like light sources in rooms and that kind of thing, now you're always going to have most places where you're kind of cohabiting with people, you will have to have some kind of a light source anyway, a lamp in the corner and that kind of thing. Is there anything that, should we say, you should look out for with regards to that with types of bulbs? Can you get something that's more neutral just for a general light source if it is going to be casting any kind of a light towards a screen?
Yeah, Mark, just like I was saying, if you go into some of the bigger retailers, I'm thinking like B&Q, Tesco, you know, the big mega stores where they have their own separate departments and that kind of thing. If you actually go in there and you look at the bulbs, and I'm trying to remember what the maker bulb was that I picked up. It may have been a Philips one, actually. Can't think of it. But if you look on the packaging, it will give you sometimes on there what the light temperature is. So certainly the ones that I picked up were 6500 Kelvin.
Yeah, it's just a white light basically, but it's a nice neutral white that's
yes,
the white that's used.
It's not yellow.
It's the white that's used in video standards, so you know it won't affect the image on the screen, and it'll still be a pleasant white light behind it. It'll still light up the room, and you don't want to be using some sort of really soft focus yellow light in the background.
And actually, as we move towards LED bulbs more and more, they tend to be a little bit bluer, which isn't as bad as being yellow. But if you look at the packaging, it should say on the packaging. If it's a good make like Philips, I mean Philips take their bulbs quite seriously, so you'll pay a little bit more for the bulb, but then you will know what the temperature is on it.
Just all wear miners' helmets, but have them sort of like pointing away from the screen. Wear them backwards, like gangster style.
Anyway, that's by side, and like we say, it's a little tip which won't cost you a lot of money. Add it into your system, add the light behind the TV, and you'll be surprised at how much it actually changes your perception of the image on screen. And if you've got a TV that struggles with black levels, then it can have that illusion of improving the blacks on your TV without you going out and buying a new one and spending thousands of pounds when you don't have to.
Same goes for projectors. So don't know if you think your projecting is looking a bit dull, rather than spending a fortune buying your projector, that sort of stuff. Try making the room darker, because like Phil said, any light in the room will affect the contrast ratio and performance of your projected image. So the darker you can make the room. I mean, I'm not saying get a tin of black. Well, I am saying get a tin of black paint, but you're going to get divorced if you do it. But yeah, the darker you can make your room for projection, the better.
Steve, your room is black.
Totally black, yeah.
Yeah, same as my room.
But I mean, we're reviewing projectors professionally in them, so I wouldn't, I don't. I'm assuming the average living room, if you've got a projector in your lounge, which a lot of people do have, clearly painting it black is just really not an option.
Yeah,
but you could go for
flower blue.
Well, there you go. You see,
well,
but
you can get colours which work though, and a lot of the greys. Again, we're talking about bias here, but there are colours of greys which are acceptable to the other half in terms of putting on a wall, and when you lower the lighting, just like you lower the light levels on a grayscale, you lower the lights with grey walls. It's amazing how dark you can actually get the room. So everybody now has a grey room.
Actually, do you know what? It's a weird moment where optimal AV settings and fashion combine. They're grey, believe it or not. It's very odd the moment. Well, the black is the new black, but not for walls. Grey is very in at the moment. We're going back to basically the colour palette of Jane Austen.
The fact you've even just said that, Ed, is worrying. But
I thought it was more eggshell blues and pastel greens.
Well, eggshell blue again is part of the same palette. Pastel green, I don't know that. What you're getting up to in the southwest is your own business. But
I just assumed that if there were lots of greys in Jane Austen's time, because they didn't have any decent washing powder. So the whites are all just a bit,
Not on the walls, you pleb.
Well, I'm looking at the Craig and Rose Authentic Period Colours Opulence range right now, and there aren't many greys in here. That's all I can say.
Can I just remind you, Ed, I live in Bath. You don't get much more Jane Austen than where I live, I tell you that much.
No, this is true. Steve's going to celebrate by having cholera later this year.
So the syphilis.
Again.
Yeah.
Well, we are talking about Jane Austen now, so things have gone horribly off message.
Yeah. But I will bring up the point that Ed was getting to, though. And it's very true, because I went on I use the car configurators quite a bit. Ed will know what I'm talking about here, because he likes looking at cars on the internet as well, even though he can't afford them. If you go into the new car sites and you look at the colours that come as standard, they're grey, 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 black, white, grey.
Every now and again, you get a brown.
You might get a brown, but you've got to pay extra if you want blue or red.
Yeah, I never thought I'd live to see the time when brown cars were being sold new and apparently in demand, but dark times are upon us, or at least brown times are upon us.
Well, the latest one is this finish, this grey finish that looks like primer. The amount of cars that I've seen driving about that looks like it's just a primer finish. It's like a grey colour, but it looks like a grey primer. The Ford Focus, I've seen loads of Ford Focuses driving around with that. Looks like they just haven't finished the paint job. Anyway, what were we talking about?
Bias lighting.
Right, I think we've done enough of that. But we do have another Ask the Idiots question. This time it is to Edward. Ed, why are cartridges important for turntables, and what are the differences between them?
Blimey. I now have to monologue, don't I? Because I can't see myself getting a huge amount of support on this one. Right. Okay, why are cartridges important? Right. Straight and slightly pedantic answer, because your turntable won't work at all without one. But in a sense, the cartridge is an assembly which combines the stylus, which is the actual needle that drops into the record, and then an assembly of components used to amplify the activity of that stylus to an electrical signal, which then goes onwards and outwards to be ramped up further by a phono stage, and then finally amplified by an amplifier. As I say, it's tremendously important because without it, your turntable is strictly decorative. But what it's being asked to do is an extremely complicated piece of precision engineering, and it's being asked to drag a needle with very consistent pressure under fairly tight tolerances by all accounts, and turn really very, very little amounts of movement into actual energy. So it's one of those things where cartridges have massive buyer's remorse attached to them. Because if you go and look at a decent hi-fi dealer's website, the cartridge photos will be quite big, far, far bigger than they are in real life. And you'll end up spending the money, and then something which quite happily will fit through your letterbox will arrive if you order it online, or if you just buy it there and then. And you realise that you've spent quite a lot of money on something which is absolutely tiny. But within that tiny chassis, you've got to do a fair amount. And value is, if you like, proportional to what the cartridge is doing. If we exclude, for brevity, there's a couple of slightly left field ways of getting an electrical signal out of this needle, but the two sort of main ones, you can either use a magnet assembly to generate an electrical current, which imaginatively is called a moving magnet cartridge, or you can use a coil, which, if you like, generates this is I have to admit, at the very limits of my schoolboy physics here, but instead of generating it through, if you like, just moving a magnet, not dissimilar to an electric motor, the coil is doing something effectively similar by the same process that electrical substations work on, and that's about as far as I understand it. Only instead of an electrical substation, you're dealing with a millivolt, or sometimes, if you're really lucky, 2 or 3 millivolts. Moving coil cartridges are, generally speaking, more expensive. It's a much harder way of doing things, and things get eye-wateringly expensive impressively quickly. If we take a company which makes lots and lots of different cartridges, something like Autofon, who made the cartridge that went on the Project Record player that I reviewed recently, their moving magnet cartridges, one of the least expensive is the one that was on that Project Record player. That's an OM5, and I think they're about £30 and upwards. Autofon's moving magnet cartridges go up to about £500, which is quite a lot of money for a moving magnet, but it's just essentially improving the measured performance, reducing the amount of interference that happens at the same time, beefing up the separation between channels, so on and so forth. Autofon's moving coil cartridges go from about £150, possibly a little bit more, all the way up to £5,000.
Okay, so if I was buying a turntable, Ed, do I stick with the cartridge that comes with it, or is it worth upgrading?
Really, if we look at the first 2 turntables of this series I'm reviewing, so that's up to about £500, I'd stick with what it comes with, if it comes with one. Not all of them do, so you may be forced into choosing something. After that point, you probably more often than not don't have a choice in this field. Most companies do not tend to supply cartridges on the end of their record players, so you will be invited to choose something. What I would say is that unless you're really going for it, by which I mean you intend to spend more than £400 on a cartridge, so you're already looking pretty serious here, just stick with moving magnet. They are now extremely good. A lot of the advantages that moving cores are supposed to have are sort of have been nullified over time, and I've listened to a couple of moving magnet cartridges over the last sort of 18 months at, semi-sensible price. I thought this is really genuinely good. So moving core cartridges, you have to have a much more complicated phono stage. Once they're worn out, they generally speaking need to be completely rebuilt, whereas a number of moving magnet cartridges, you simply slot a new stylus into them. So yeah, it's a world of hurt. It's getting very serious. So for me, unless you really want to go for it, you can get great performance out of a moving magnet. So yeah, ultimately, all four, provided we get to number 4, I'm hoping that we stick with it. All of the turntables I intend to look at have moving magnet cartridges, and that takes you, I mean, in the case of the last turntable, that takes you a long way up the food chain. So yeah, if you're getting back into it, great performance can be yours from truly great. Orsifon make the 2M series, and they go from, I believe, about £100, and truly you can get they sound absolutely lovely. So don't feel that you have to spend a huge amount of money, but be under no illusions that if you want to, yeah, you can spend a fortune.
Just like everything in life. Anyway, I think that covers that subject. Let's move on very quickly to upcoming reviews. Ed, we're middle of the month, so you will now be prepping to start writing your reviews for the end of the month.
I've actually finished one, and we'll be uploading it later on today, you incredibly rude man. That's the Acoustic Energy 1 series is going up first. Then a bit more turntable action in the form of Riga's RP3. Then I have to decide whether I want to write about the exciting JVC fitness earphones that I was sent by someone with a very peculiar sense of humour. And
Ed, it was either me or you doing the fitness thing.
This is true, and I have actually had them tested under gym conditions by a friend of mine that actually goes.
Yeah, because we wouldn't go to the gym.
No, because I wouldn't have known anything. She has actually found some interesting pros and cons to using them in a fitness based situation that I'd have never worked out on my own. And then finally, I will be finishing up with the Eclipse speaker package that I am looking at now, and like you, feeling a certain reticence about putting it into
are
the
you
box.
looking at them, or are they looking at you?
Well, they do both. They have a vaguely Pixar lamp meets Tom Cruise War of the Worlds Death Machine sort of look to them, and they do tend to sort of stare at you. But I'm in a good place with them. They've divided opinion in the time they've been here. Some people have thought they're absolutely brilliant and think that they're a really nice piece of industrial design. Other people think they're just deranged. So
there you go. Okay,
yeah.
So moving on, like I said earlier on, I've got a speaker package coming in. X3100 might actually get reviewed, same as Steve reviewing the X7200. we haven't done this on purpose, it's just been other things have gotten in the way. And also the Creative Sound Blaster X7, which is quite an interesting device. I'm still trying to figure out probably the best way to review it, because it does so many things and takes so many connections and all the rest. You use it for gaming and phone calls and all sorts, but it also interestingly has some pretty high level DACs in there, and has a 100-watt amplifier and speaker terminals at the back as well to run speakers. So yeah, interesting bit of kit, and also has pretty high end headphone amplifier as well. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting thing to review. Don't know where to start with it because it does so many different things. Hodge?
Well, as well as all the little media boxes, we won't go into detail again about. I have got a 5.1/7.1 system from Samsung, all in one thing. Samsung Blu-ray player, and a LG G-Pad 10-inch tablet in the works.
Okay, and to wrap up, Steve?
I've got the Samsung HWJ. Hang on, sorry, what's in my throat?
He's eating the cat.
got a hairball.
It's full hairball, yeah. Yeah, I've got the Samsung HWJ8500 soundbar, which is an absolutely monstrously huge, I've got to say.
Is it curved?
It is curved, and it's also huge. So if you're buying one of these, you want to be matching it with a very big telly. Otherwise, it's going to dwarf your screen. But yes, it is curved. It comes with a wireless sub as well. And I'm doing that at the moment, along with the 7200 Phil's already mentioned. And then next week, I'm getting some Arcam kit, getting in an Arcam AVR and Arcam Blu-ray player.
Good stuff. And Mr. Botwright, anything of note coming from the games team?
Yeah, well, obviously you've still got the games potty up there, but Leon's got a couple in the works: Battlefield Hardline review and Resident Evil Revelations 2 review as well. And we should have a little games team roundtable on the latest Nintendo news, trying to get everyone's opinion on that.
And we're going to come back to you in a sec for games news. So stay where you are.
Don't eat anything.
Right, so games news. What do we have, Mark?
Not much going on at the moment, but there is a little bit of news on the kind of Metal Gear Solid front. GameSpot reported there was a bit of infighting between Kojima Productions and Konami, its parent company. And this seems to have kind of some repercussions for the series as a whole, because obviously Hideo Kojima has been creator and director of all the main installments in the series thus far, and he's kind of the big driving force behind the franchise. And yes, this GameSpot story came up with tales of restricted access for senior figures to email accounts and the like, and basically it seems as if various people had been frozen out, and it was a case of some kind of infighting. And it was then noticed that Kojima's name had been taken off, excised from all the old Metal Gear Solid covers on the Konami site, and now it emerges that they're in fact looking for new developers for further installments in the series. So it was one of those things that may have been coming for a while, because Hideo Kojima has kind of flirted around saying that various entries might be his last in the series, but should we say it'll be interesting to see how it moves forward from here, because it's very much his baby. He's kind of molded it into this cutscene heavy cinematic series, and a lot of people quite worried that, should we say, modern games don't tackle stealth in the same way that they used to. It'll be interesting to see how they move forward.
Do you feel, I have to say, it has been a very long time since I've done the running around and hiding genre of game. I mean, I looked at some of the sort of information on some of the more recent releases. It bore nothing to, very little in relation to the sort of thing that I actually used to enjoy playing. And I mean, is he sort of like scooting around with a view to feel he's got more to give, or is more tacitly he's sort of running out of ideas in the running around now interspersed with tremendously long, pointless video cutscene genre?
I don't think that he'd ever necessarily feel that he'd stopped, should we say, his kind of love affair with the type of game that he makes, because he's making the kind of thing that he likes, and it's very much unique in the market right now, because so much of the stealth genre has moved down this kind of very much a simplified route. And even on the kind of cinematic side, you're not seeing anything really like what Hideo Kojima does. But some people are kind of likening it to a figure like George Lucas moving away from the Star Wars franchise. But the thing is, Lucas ruined his own creation. Hideo Kojima is still kind of pioneering what he does best.
But I mean, when you say that, it's still, isn't it? They become more and more of an acquired taste, though. I mean, this is all secondhand because, as I say, I have not played a more recent. But wasn't in one of the more recent ones you actually had to have a fairly fundamental knowledge of human physiology. If you were hit or shot, you had to do a tremendously complicated procedure to actually embark on sort of healing yourself. And it was realistic up until a point, but it sort of ceased to be in any way entertaining as a game unless you were also sort of busy training up to be a GP.
Well, this is kind of one of the criticisms that gets levelled at the series, which is that it's gone down this kind of cul-de-sac where it is now just for fans. I mean, people are already talking about saying, well, if they move away from the series canon and the storyline that's been kind of created, then they'll be extremely annoyed. But it's now to the point where it's so convoluted that it does seem like it's pretty much fans only. Yet, at the same time, it sells spectacularly well. So it's clearly selling to people who haven't kind of, played all of these installments. It's clearly selling to people who have absolutely no idea what half the backstory is and can't remember, from the last installment, kind of like about 6 years ago. And it's just got such high, I think it's got such high production values that it is like a kind of summer blockbuster, which is people feel you've got the established fan base who want to buy into it, but you've also people feel that it's big enough, it's glitzy enough, it's glossy enough, and it's one of those things that you have to have an opinion about. So therefore, you have to buy it anyway.
I can have an opinion about things I don't buy. It's never stopped me before. I just looked at some, I see some of the information on the more recent ones, and it's just a bit. I'm afraid. Whereas the original Metal Gear Solid, and to a lesser extent Metal Gear Solid 2, already there were signs of weirdness creeping in with that. It was just a wonderful concept, wonderfully executed, and now it's a high art concept, peculiarly executed. And as you say, it has an established fan base, but it's just a bit weird.
Sounds a little bit like vinyl.
Yeah, but I would argue that at the very least with that, it's not dependent on the increasing sort of whimsical views of one human being to keep it going. Other people's opinions are allowed in, and you can do it. That can be done sort of vaguely sensibly, or you can go bonkers. Your choice.
I think on that note, we can say that's games news.
Everyone else has run away.
Okay, moving on, and movies. Before we go on to the movies that are opening this weekend, we've got a new movie review team, Steve. So we've got 4 new reviewers who are going to be going out and covering just about every cinema release on the Friday, or before, if we can get them in before. So we should have those reviews up on the site. Tell us a bit more.
Yeah, we've got 4 new reviews, 1 guy and 3 women. So that's excellent news in terms of our demographic, I think, that we finally balance things out a little bit more in terms of the female-male ratio in AV Forums. We've now got 4 female reviewers in total, including Laura, who did some stuff for us previously. We've also got one of the male reviewers, Tom Webb, and he reviewed Run All Night, the new Liam Neeson film about the week before last. And then we have also got Kumari, who reviewed Wildcard, the new Jason Statham movie, which opened up on Friday. She gave it 5 out of 10. Said that surprisingly for a Jason Statham movie, it could have done a bit more action. Written by William Goldman, who won an Oscar previously for writing, I think, All President's Men. But sadly lacking in action for a Jason Statham movie, which must be a bit of a surprise. We also have Cassandra, and she, again, did a review 2 weeks ago. She did X plus Y, which is a new film about a math genius with autism. So I think she drew the short straw in terms of the action stakes there. But that was her review. And then the other reviewer we've got is Sharuna Walker, and she reviewed Insurgent, the second part of the Divergent series, or Detergent series, as Laura likes to call it, which she gave 5 out of 10 to as well. Said it was basically massively derivative. And having seen Divergent myself, I can say that this whole series of books looks like was written by a 14-year-old. Actually, it was written by a 14-year-old, I think, or at least a teenager, who basically took all the things that were popular in young adult fiction, stuck them in a computer and pressed F4. And that's what this looks like. And this looks like more of the same, basically. And obviously, Kaz still reviewing for us, of course. And Kaz did The Gunman at the weekend, which is the new film starring a ribbed up and really amped up Sean Penn.
So it's basically a Sean Penn does Liam Neeson.
Yeah,
the problem is that Liam Neeson hasn't stopped doing Liam Neeson. Does this mean they're going to be 2 concurrent film universes and they're just going to gruff each other out in some...
Yeah, make a Marvel's Avengers or something with the pair of them.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You're going to have the final movie where they're up against each other, aren't they? Or
but they won't meet. They'll just yell at each other on the phone,
for 2 hours. 90 minutes.
There might be some wolves thrown in there.
Yeah, maybe.
that was a good Neeson film. I think it has become known in the trade now as doing a Neeson. When a previously respected actor basically gives it all up to take a big paycheck and do loads of action films. I mean, Liam Neeson's done about 10 in the last 3 years. I've lost track now. And also, apparently, he's got like a heavy, sort of political message within it as well, because obviously it's Sean Penn.
A Sean Penn movie with a heavy... No.
Never.
Get away.
Okay, so let's move things on. Films opening this Friday that the team are going to go and see.
Yeah, we got Cinderella. This is a live-action version of Cinderella, again, produced by Disney, but live-action with Kenneth Branagh directing. Cate Blanchett plays the wicked aunt, I believe, and Helena Bonham Carter is the fairy godmother. I have seen the trailers for this, and it looks gorgeous. I mean, Kenneth Branagh's a talented director. He can make a good movie. I mean, he did a great job, I thought, with Thor. Obviously, this is part of Disney's current trend of taking some of their more classic animated material and then giving it a modern twist. So, obviously, Maleficent last year was a prime example where they took the villain, or villain in inverted commas, I suppose, after the film, from Sleeping Beauty, from the animated Sleeping Beauty, and made a live-action version of a sort of backstory for her. And this is a live-action version of Cinderella. I mean, we kind of all know how it plays out, but it's got an interesting cast, a talented director. And it's done very well in the opening in the US last weekend, and it's done extremely well over the weekend. So that's opening. We've also got, what else have we got? We've got The Signal, which Kaz is going to review. The Signal is a low-budget sci-fi thriller. I don't know too much about it. I know it's had some pretty good reviews, and it went very well at Sundance last year. And it's got Lawrence Fishburne in it, and anything with Lawrence Fishburne in it is good in my opinion. So that's worth checking out if you're into a bit of sci-fi. And the other film we got is Get Hard, which is that's what it's called. Get Hard, which is the new Will Ferrell vehicle where he plays basically a kind of an upper class, a rich banker type who gets sent to prison for embezzlement. And before he gets sent to prison, he basically hires a black guy played by Kevin Hart, who seems to be in everything these days, who has to sort of teach him to be hard so he can survive being in prison. That's what based from watching the trailer, I should add. I don't know. I find Will Ferrell very much an acquired taste, and a little bit's okay, but too much can be very annoying. And Kevin Hart's very much an acquired taste too, for anyone who's seen things like The Wedding Ringer and Ride Along. But that comes out on Friday, and then we've also got SpongeBob SquarePants the movie in 3D, which was a huge hit in the States when it opened there, and so people are expecting it to do well again, I guess, in time for the kids' holidays over Easter. I mean, I'm sure we're all familiar with SpongeBob SquarePants. All I can think of is a great joke that the late Robin Williams did, where he was talking about, at the time he did the joke, there were rumours that SpongeBob SquarePants was gay. It's a gay cartoon character. As well. A gay man in SquarePants? I don't think so. A sailor suit and no pants. Hello, Donald Duck. Oh, well, I thought
that's why he was a comedian and you weren't.
Yeah. That's it for this weekend.
And who's doing SpongeBob?
I don't know. Actually, I haven't assigned somebody yet that particular treat.
I think you should do it.
I might go and see it, and then I might go and Get Hard as well.
When you see SpongeBob
Boom,
SquarePants.
boom.
Yeah.
Boom dish.
Right, let's move on. Blu-rays released next week. There's only 2 on the list.
Well, there's other stuff coming out, but the 2 I think that might be of interest to people is obviously Interstellar, which is Christopher Nolan's new movie. It came out towards the end of last year, I think last November, with Matthew McConaughey, where a mission into space to go through a wormhole and try and find a new planet for mankind to colonize because our planet's buggered. It's one of those films that's designed to be a huge big screen experience. So how well it's going to translate onto disc, I don't know. But the disc itself is, as with all of the previous 2 Batman movies that Nolan made, it's got multiple aspect ratios. So it's got 2.35. I know I hate this, but he's done it again. So you've got 2.35 to 1, and then opening out to 1.78 to 1 for the IMAX sequences. And apparently the IMAX sequences are basically, it's still all the space set stuff is going to be in IMAX. So I mean, I'm sure it'll be a great transfer, but I really hate those multiple aspect ratios. It really pisses me off.
But they don't do it on the DVD release, do they? Well, they did with the Batman, so I might just have to watch it on DVD.
Or if you've got masking, you can mask top and bottom of the screen.
Yeah, I'm not paying £2,000 for a processor just to mask the screen.
Yeah, so the film, plus also a whole load of extras about how they made it and the science behind it and that kind of stuff. I saw it at the cinema, and it has some interesting ideas, but it's a long old haul. It might be better at home when you can get comfortable and have a cup of tea and stuff and put your feet up.
Yeah.
At the cinema, it was a bit of an endurance test.
Yeah.
And a lot of people complain. It's nearly 3 hours. A lot of people complained about not being able to understand dialogue a lot of the time, which Nolan apparently said, "Oh, well, that was the way it was meant to sound," but apparently it sounds more intelligible on the Blu-ray. So. And the other film is St. Vincent, which is a Bill Murray comedy, where he plays a kind of layabout guy who takes a young kid under his arm and teaches him the ways of the world, which I'm reviewing when I get around to it, with Melissa McCarthy and Naomi Watts.
What, in your cinema room?
I look forward to
you're
their
reviewing
opinions.
it.
And the cat.
Melissa McCarthy, not so much. Naomi Watts is welcome anytime.
Like you could be choosy.
I think I might have to say no to Melissa McCarthy, in all fairness.
You wouldn't say no to Bill Murray.
Maybe Bill, yeah.
Well, you'll have to tell me if it's any good, because it's been a while since we had a decent Bill Murray movie.
Yeah, the last thing I remember him being really great in was Zombieland.
Yeah, that's the last time he was funny.
They go to him, "You've got any regrets, Bill?" And he goes, "No, not really. Or maybe Garfield."
Okay, moving on. Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, or is Edward have us Rouge Nation?
Actually, no, is it just me, or should there be Mission : Impossible : Rogue Nation?
Yes, it's Rogue punctuation here.
No. I mean, I thought that looked strange though. Too many colons in that sentence. That's just ridiculous. Whatever happened to the good days when I used to just call it 2, 3, 4? Now everything's got a subtitle, haven't they?
Well, because if nothing else, by the time you get past 3, it's beginning to look a bit desperate. So that's one of the reasons. And now also with so many films that are a bit desperate, you need to differentiate them in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I guess you know, if you look at Fast and Furious 7, right? Which we
At
all
least
know,
they've got the courage to put a 7 in there.
Well, we all know it's going to be, you know, a mega Oscar-winning epic. But the fact is, it's 7, and people will think, well, I've got to see the other 6. Whereas if you got something that's called Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, it doesn't have a number there. It doesn't mean psychologically it's not saying to you, well, you got to see the other 4 before you come and see this one.
Yeah, no, that's what
you can actually go and see it. Yeah, it's a standalone movie. Go and see it. Yeah.
Because if you think about it, look at James Bond. I mean, you know, obviously every James Bond movie has a completely different title. Imagine what if they'd been using the 1, 2, 3 thing, and it'd be like James Bond 23.
No, that's what I call music 155.
Yeah, that's what you get down to.
I remember the first. Now that's what I call music album.
But I admire Fast and Furious for kind of, you know, bucking the trend of doing this and steadfastly sticking with numbers. Although, having said that, then their naming system is a little unusual, because it's the Fast and the Furious, 2, as in the number 2, Fast, 2, Furious. So they got a bit clever on the second one. The third one's the Fast and the Furious : Tokyo Drift. The fourth one is Fast and Furious. The fifth one is Fast 5. The sixth one is Furious 6. And now it's Fast and Furious 7. So they have been, and also the chronology is very strange, because you need to watch, if you're going to watch them all, you watch the third one you need to watch after watching the sixth one, but before the end credits of the sixth one. Because there's a little end credit sequence that ties in with the third one, and then watch the seventh one at the cinema. So
you're really selling this well, Steve. You really
listen, the Fast and Furious franchise is the only franchise in cinema history that has progressively got better with each film. And the last 2 have been absolutely stonking.
Do you think
genuinely looking forward?
Do you think that 6 was better than 5? Because I don't.
No, I don't think 6 was better than 5, but it was good fun, and there was certainly plenty in it that I really enjoyed. And the way they got the chronology back with them tying it in with Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift was good too. So yeah, great. And I'm genuinely, all joking aside, looking forward to Fast and Furious 7.
Okay, so that's Steve down. That's what he's looking forward to. You know, no mention of Star Wars there, Steve. So you're obviously not a big fan of Star Wars. You said last week that you've had enough anyway. You just want the original movie and be done with it and grow up, don't you?
Yeah, exactly.
I've just seen the trailer for Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. I keep wanting to say Rouge Nation.
I've ruined it for you.
Yes, you have. Got to say, the stunts in that, I'm just going to watch a movie just for the stunts, especially the one, it looks like they're on the Top Gear test track where the plane takes off and he's hanging on the side of it. And you know with Tom Cruise that he does all his own stunts and that they're done for real and not in the computer. Really looking forward to seeing that. Now that I've seen the stunts, yeah.
Isn't it that he did admit that whilst he's still, I don't want to take anything away from it, because he's not in his first flush of youth and he's still doing all of this stuff himself, he's got a slightly less absolute belief in his own immortality, because Edge of Tomorrow / Live Die Repeat, whatever you want to call it, he was very, very lucky to escape serious and lasting injury in that. So things have been done. He's still doing a lot of his own work, but it's being done in a slightly less what could possibly go wrong way.
Yeah, and
I'd like to see the insurance policy for some of these films. I mean, he's the star and everything. What insurance company's going to say, "Oh yeah, hang off the side of the Burj Khalifa. Oh yeah, hang on the side of a plane. Don't worry about it."
Yeah, well, I mean, there's the behind the scenes stuff for what do you call it, Oblivion, where he's riding a motorcycle and he falls off of that 3 or 4 times. And we're not just talking about sliding off; we're actually talking about jumping and falling off the thing. And yeah, right. So
do you ever get the feeling he's overcompensated for something, Tom Cruise?
He's short like you.
Here's a slight. I don't want to drag this too far, but here's a slightly he's still fairly major film star. It actually still carries a permanent injury from doing a stunt on a film set, and it's not actually that dramatic. But he at one point nearly considered ending his own life over the discomfort that resulted from it. Interesting question.
Tobey Maguire, bad back from Spider-Man.
No.
Shia LaBeouf. He lost a finger.
Believe it or not, the answer, because you wouldn't consider it an action film in any meaningful sense of the word, believe it or not, the answer is George Clooney in Syriana.
Well, they pulled his fingernails out.
No, they
that's a
didn't
bit
do
too
that.
method for my money.
When he's knocked over in a chair, he's suffered lasting spinal damage.
You can sit down, have a strong coffee, you'll be fine.
Well, so it's true what they used to tell you in school. Don't lean back on your chair.
Well, yeah, possibly. Don't pull it out from under people as well.
Mission Impossible does look kind of interesting from the point of view that it's kind of all based around stunts. You know, it's, if anything, that one feels almost less of a franchise movie than any of the others, in the sense that you don't need much of a setup, and it is just all about the spectacle there. You know, if the stunts are good, then people will like it. If not, you know, then they'll start complaining about, you know, kind of Tom Cruise and the like, and is he over as an action hero?
No,
and that
actually,
kind of thing.
I don't think Tom Cruise is the risky factor. I think the risky factor is Simon Pegg, and can you buy the fact that he's going to be more action orientated? Can you suspend disbelief enough with Simon?
Yeah, but
Pegg?
here's the thing, which is Tom Cruise tends to get the flack when a Tom Cruise film ends up poor. You know, when it's good, he's kind of at the forefront of it all. When it's poor, people kind of say Tom Cruise is kind of done at the top. That people have been saying that for kind of, 10, 15 years now, and continually comes back.
Yeah, recently I've watched 2 Tom Cruise films which have been absolutely brilliant, which is Oblivion and Edge of Tomorrow. And people keep saying he's done for and he's finished. But what do people know, Steve?
It's true. Jack Reacher was good.
In 1 hour and 36 minutes, we've proved beyond reasonable doubt that we don't know nothing.
Quite a lot of what we're an hour and a half into this.
Basically, it's going to be us doing some Mission Impossible quotes to start with. We might get 2 minutes of bias lighting, a minute of cartridges, some film.
No. I'll have to leave that. I'll have to
loads
leave
of
everything there.
Double up on the good material, see if people notice it.
I think we're going to have to resort to doing a live commentary of Theodore Rex, aren't we? Because we have...
We've already gone into the stream of consciousness with this one.
I don't know. Don't hurt me.
What picture are you going to choose for the podcast this week?
Monkeys flinging poo at each other.
Right, are we finished?
Yep.
Have we started?
That's a very true question, Mark. Very true. I think once we got the cartridges out the way, that was it. It was downhill from there.
Yeah.
Who did the cartridges? Ed. Ed's to blame.
Yeah, well,
And on that bombshell, that's all we got time for on the AVForums podcast this week. I'd be interested to see what the running time is. My thanks to Steve Withers.
Sorry.
I thought you'd walk then.
Hang on. Relax your crack, foghorn.
Mark,
What was that?
Mark Hodgkinson.
Anonymity is like a warm blanket.
Mark Botwright.
Don't just chew it.
And Ed Selley.
he's dead. They're all dead.
You know the usual crack. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook, bookmark AVForums for latest reviews, news and video, and you can also follow us on iTunes and leave us a rating on iTunes.
Not for this one.
If you have an opinion on this, please feel free to keep it to yourself.
Anyway, thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next Wednesday.